What's up, Taiwan? I'm Sandy Chi with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. An orange heat alert has been issued in parts of Taiwan as temperatures soar as high as 38 degrees Celsius. We spoke to people in Taipei dealing with the sweltering heat. Water trucks are dispatched to parts of Taiwan to cool the streets as the scorching summer heat continues to bake the country. The heat is caused by Pacific subtropical highs and climate change. But the sweltering temperatures did not stop people from going about their usual weekend activities.
很热，超热。
就真的很热，全身都是汗啊。
为什么还想出来？这种天气。
因为带小孩子来拜拜。
Taiwan's Central Weather Administration issued orange heat alerts for Yunlin, Pingtung, and Tainan in the country's south, indicating highs of 38 degrees Celsius. While up north, Taipei and the surrounding area was warned of temperatures soaring above 36 degrees. This is the first time this year officials issued a heat warning for Taipei. Different from other parts of the country, most of the capital rests in the Taipei Basin, where the concave terrain traps the heat for longer. Alone in Taipei Sud's neighborhood, the temperature reached over 38 degrees Celsius.
I've been walking around the Taipei for just a few minutes and I'm already drenched in my sweat. And even though people are still out in the heat, and you can see them dashing to shades and shelter to avoid the sun.
Other than cooling down the streets, 10 government departments have activated response measures and are reminding the public to take protective measures. If someone experiences signs of heat-related illness, like dizziness and mild nausea, they should immediately seek medical assistance.
我们是建议民众可以尽可能待在通风良好或者是有空调的室内，同时我们也建议民众可以减少户外的活动跟劳动。那如果有外出的话，则要做好防晒的措施。
According to the government, this heat wave is expected to continue until early afternoon on Sunday. But that reprieve may be short-lived, with higher temperatures forecast after Thursday, as the Pacific subtropical high strengthens. Justin Wu and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus. Pro-Palestinian activists have gathered at Liberty Square in Taipei despite heavy rain to march against Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza. Around 100 people attended the rally organized by For Peace Taiwan and alternative music collectives in Taiwan's punk scene. Demonstrators called on Taiwan to stop supplying Israel with military equipment. Estimates placed the death toll for Palestinians at over 37,000 since the war began on October 7.
We cannot stand still and watch as this genocide continues, and within our capacity, what we can do in Taiwan, we want to continue showing solidarity to Palestinians and to show that Taiwan cares.
Israel and Lebanese militant group Hezbollah have traded fresh cross-border fire as fears of wider regional conflict in the Middle East ramp up. 2 Hezbollah missiles struck the northern Israeli town of Metula on Saturday. The strikes sparked fires, but no injuries were reported. The Israeli military says it fired back at Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon. It comes after Israel said it approved plans for an offensive in Lebanon, prompting UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to warn against letting the clashes turn into another Gaza. Israel and Hezbollah have been trading near daily blows for more than 8 months since the outbreak of war between Hamas and Israel on October 7. The Navy is set to return to Taiwan-Controlled Percussion Island in the South China Sea to set up more communication systems. Roughly 500 Marines are now stationed on the disputed island. The Defense Ministry says it will send the troops more advanced radar systems and drones to monitor Chinese military activity. Chinese fighter jets and warships frequently operate in this area. Some analysts say the arriving equipment might bring better intel.
如果我们上面有更为先进的征收装备的话，或许可以去对于他们飞过来的机种，甚至是他们在进行什么样的操演，甚至是有没有可能借此去拦截或截听他们的一个通讯的讯号，对我们的一个情研来讲有更进一步的作用。
Taiwan's military is looking to invest more in its domestic defense industry. That's as the country gets ready to pass its defense budget for 2025 this August. For more on why Taiwan is driving up spending on these projects, our reporter Jaime Ocon spoke to Raymond Guo from the RAND Corporation.
So Raymond, we're starting to hear some updates about what Taiwan's defense budget could look like. And a big part of it looks like it's going to go into the domestic defense industry. How important is that for Taiwan?
First off, let's talk about indigenous production. Taiwan has just released its indigenously developed diesel submarine. They announced that I think they're building, I think they've already hit 5,000 military-grade drones as of this year. Also, I think 200 to 400 anti-ship missiles every year, and they just did the anti-air missile as well. So I think part of this issue is that the U.S. is kind of stretched, right? Its defense industrial base hasn't really been funded effectively for the last, let's say, 20, 30 years. And so this is, as a result of that, the U.S. is slowly getting into a position where it's reinvigorating its defense industrial base. Until that time, other countries are going to take up the slack. And so I think this is what Taiwan is doing. Indigenous production, getting the supplies from abroad where it can, but really doing things in-house, because ultimately, if there is, say, a blockade or a quarantine, they're going to have to make those things on the island itself.
Now, there are rumors of this new hybrid tank, armored vehicle kind of hybrid with a new weapon, a new cannon that's going to be on top of it. I wanted to get your thoughts on, is this a smart investment for Taiwan and looking at its defense? Are these kind of systems going to be effective?
No, it's not terrible, right? I think the question you have is, if it gets onto a beach, that might be a problem, right? If it's during the rainy season, okay, then wheeled vehicles are not great at that kind of thing. You really want tracked vehicles for that. But, given that, say, on the western coast of Taiwan, we're really talking about fairly urban areas. It can move faster, right? But I think the issue is, it's great to have the hardware, but is the software actually set up? So, for example, as these vehicles are coming down the road, are there, say, police officers who can just kind of clear the road so they can actually go through? That is, I think, the next critical question. So, I think in terms of, rapid mobile deployment, these are not bad, especially if they're kind of stationed in different parts of the island so they can deploy more closely. But then, is there some sort of military, civilian, or military police link up such that these things can have priority of access, for example, to get to where they need to go?
That was Raymond Guo from the RAND Corporation speaking to our reporter Jaime Ocon. Germany's economy minister has said the European Union is open for discussion on planned tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles. He made the comment while in Shanghai. Robert Habeck is the first senior European official to visit China since the bloc announced the tariffs. The EU says Beijing's large subsidies for Chinese car makers give them an unfair advantage over European competitors. The two sides have agreed to start talks on the tariffs. Habeck told Chinese officials there's time for dialogue, but there needs to be a level playing field in EV markets. During his 3-day visit, Habeck is expected to try to reduce the risk of retaliation by Beijing on German car makers, who rely on China for almost 1/3 of their annual sales. 13 people have been rushed to the hospital after the pressurization system on a Korean air flight malfunctioned. The incident happened while the plane was en route from Incheon Airport near Seoul to Taichung in central Taiwan. The malfunction forced the pilot to quickly descend from 35,000 feet to less than 10,000 feet and return to Incheon. Passengers on board reported experiencing eardrum pain and other discomfort. Those hospitalized are said to have suffered only minor injuries. Authorities are now investigating what caused the plane to malfunction. A pet shop in the eastern county of Hualien erupted in flames over the weekend. Police are now investigating what caused the blaze to happen. Rosie Greninger reports.
Running towards flames and intense heat, firefighters raced to save more than 20 animals from a burning pet store in eastern Hualien. The shop erupted into flames on Saturday evening, knocking out power to surrounding shops. The majority of the pets inside were rescued, but one dog was killed as firefighters struggled to contain the blaze.
由于现场是属于遇到了联动建筑物，因此在燃烧的时候非常的快速，也造成我们在抢救上极大的困扰。
It took around 2 hours, 45 fire trucks and 140 personnel to extinguish the blaze, as materials inside the shop exploded and intensified the fire. The flames so intense that firefighters outside were affected by the heat.
他当时有带氧气筒进去吗？没有，但是就是闷热。
City officials say they're willing to provide aid to rebuild after the damage is inspected.
那再来就是我们会看明天把火灾的这个部分厘清完后，那可能也会发放我们的一个慰问金。
Police and firefighters have now launched an investigation into the cause of the fire. But although the fire looks to have incinerated the shop, people here are happy that they were able to save as many of their furry friends as possible. James Lin, Jaime Acon and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
People in the southern city of Kaohsiung are complaining about a terrible stench as thousands of dead fish turn up in an urban waterway. The fish have been washing up in the creek for 3 straight days. Local officials say they likely died due to water waste discharge, low oxygen and water levels, and excessive heat. The city government confirmed that a nearby food processing factory had been illegally releasing its runoff into the river. To prevent future fish die-offs, Kaohsiung says it will send staff out on weekends to ramp up wastewater inspections. Hospitals are looking to a new class of fresh nursing school graduates to help fill thousands of vacancies. But nurses groups say more incentives are needed as wait times grow, bed numbers shrink, and nurses fed up with it all leave the profession. John Van Triest has the story.
Ms. Zhao has been in the emergency room since the morning with a suspected kidney infection. If her wait time is anything like normal in Taiwan these days, it could be up to 3 days before she gets a proper hospital bed. And if she needs surgery, she may have to wait another 2 weeks. The long wait times are down to a major shortage of nurses. Just 60% of registered nurses in Taiwan are still working in medicine. Many have left the profession since the COVID-19 pandemic. This has left 24,000 vacant positions across the country. There have been efforts to make the job less stressful. Strict nurse-to-patient ratios put in place in March mean hospital staff aren't given more work than they can handle, and that patients aren't in danger of being neglected by overworked nurses. Hospital administrators are happy with this change, at least to a point.
我觉得这个是一个对护理人员一个友善职场的一个表现。
The problem is this same measure forces hospitals to keep many available beds empty, up to 30% in some cases. There just aren't enough nurses to go around, which means longer wait times for patients. And even with fewer patients to care for, nurses are still calling it quits.
所有的医院都提出了很多调整薪资的办法及留任的措施。 希望留住更多的资深的护理人员，或者能请护理师回任。
A newly graduated nursing school class offers some hope. But nurses groups say the government needs to offer subsidies not just to those who work certain shifts on the hospital floor, but also to those who work in surgery and emergency medicine. And above all, they say there's no way to attract new nurses into hospitals without higher salaries, something they say will have to come from greater national health insurance payouts to hospitals. Andy Xue and John Van Triest for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's Zhu Percussion Group has performed at the Salle Gaveau Concert Hall in Paris, part of a series of art and culture events featuring Taiwanese artists. On the troup's second stop of their world tour, they performed 6 pieces. The group's founder, Zhu Zongqing, says they are honored to perform ahead of the Olympics, which will take place in the French capital this summer. Zhu says his troupe hopes to use their spirited music to show support for the country's athletes. To date, the group has toured 35 countries since it was established in 1986. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, check out the world's ugliest dog contest. Aren't they imperfectly perfect? I'm Sanichi. Take care and see you next time.